Nobody expects these things to happen in their life. It's always going to happen to somebody else.
I heard a car drive away. Then I just start hearing choking.
I made sure that all my detectives were wearing their bulletproof vests, just in case our shooter came back to the scene.
A bizarre turn of events in a story that caught the attention of the nation.
We are literally in the middle of a manhunt. We know that he's armed. Immediately, FBI's calling the White House. He's in Washington, D.C.
Started thinking, well, was there anything else that we could have done to prevent it? Here's our son, and I can't help him at all. So, sorry.
Coeur d'Alene is located in North Idaho. We're in the Panhandle, kind of close to the Canadian border. It is very mountainous. A lot of people like to retire here because of the lake. My name is Stacy. I have lived in Coeur d'Alene my whole life. It used to be a very small town, kind of bitter. People keep moving here because it's so beautiful. There are a lot of trees and greenery. My brother Kyle and I would ride our bikes through a bunch of little hills. It was just a very safe town always, but it is becoming a little more scary. I mean, what part of the world isn't?
This one was one of our memories from a family trip. Yeah, Kyle doing a cannonball. He liked doing cannonballs. He enjoyed being just out in the yard and yeah, playing. A good time.
My dad's name is Terry. My mom's name is Nancy.
Went on the sand dunes a lot.
I got hurt on the sand dunes a lot. Kyle and I rode motorcycles. I wrecked a lot more than he did probably because I was not as good as he was at riding motorcycles.
My dad was a firefighter for 28, 30 years, something like that. So he did that my whole life.
The job, your whole purpose for being there is to help people, whether it's fires, car wrecks, suicides. I always thought how lucky I was that none of that happened in my family. Kyle was our firstborn, and he was born in 1985, and just a happy-go-lucky kid.
And this is my grandmother and grandfather holding Kyle for the first time.
He was super inquisitive. Things amazed him. He'd study things.
He was the smarter one of the two of us. He always got straight A's. I remember he got a B on one of his tests and he was just so distraught.
This is when he graduated high school.
Just a high school kid with potential.
And talent.
He had the whole world open to him.
I am Johann Schmitz. I work for the Coeur d'Alene Police Department here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It was the afternoon of March 6th, and I received a phone call that there had been a shooting here at the Altar Church, and all the detective staff were being dispatched from the police department to respond immediately to the scene. It's not every day where someone gets shot in broad daylight in the middle of, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. All I knew was that a person had been shot in the parking lot. There's a lot going on when you first show up to process that. We immediately divvy up the tasks amongst detectives, because right now we have an active crime scene. We may have a homicide. I can see a pool of blood right here in front of the vehicle. I could see multiple shell casings scattered about the parking lot here. The caliber of bullet is a .45 ACP. It's a very large caliber bullet. The victim, he had been shot multiple times. We still had someone at large. We didn't know who had done the shooting or where that person was, or if the community in general was still in danger.
So a Sunday in my life, since I was born, is always wake up, go to church, and you get to dedicate this day to family and to the Lord. My name is Jaden Remington, born and raised Christian in the church. I'm the son of Pastor Tim Remington, raised a pastor's kid. My dad was a very, very good example of what a good Christian should be.
I was at work that day. I am a cardiac sonographer. I do ultrasound of the heart. I work at Kootenai Health. It is the only hospital in Coeur d'Alene. And my mom had texted me that Kyle was missing and no one could get a hold of him, which was very out of character for him.
That's when my wife and I decided to drive around to his old places that we knew he liked, the high school, the casino. We drove around there and found no trace of him. I could tell he had been stressed lately, but I was thinking, wow, he's doing much better. This was from the Marines. This was the day he graduated from boot camp. And of course, his dress uniforms. I pushed him towards the military. I was definitely a Navy guy, and Kyle wanted to follow in the military footsteps. When Kyle told us that he was going to be sent to Iraq, and of course, being on the ground, it's, you know, everything was pretty hostile over there. And so, yeah, we were concerned, and we said a lot of prayers and just loved on him as much as we could. He was a gunner on one of the helicopters that flew back and forth between two of the bases. So he had all the stresses that go on with being over there and having mortars go off around the base area and stuff too. So, I mean, he experienced all that over there in Iraq. It was a little nerve-wracking while he was over there for that full 7 months. It was good to have him back home. I'm just proud of the service he did.
So I just kept going through my workday, still not super at ease, but I was trying to keep the hope that he was okay.
March 6th was a very average, typical Sunday. The church is always packed. Both services are always full, so the parking lot was very full. There was a bake sale for the children's ministry that day, and so my dad said hi to everybody, and I think we bought a few cookies and then went and found a seat. I was still dating Macy, who is now my wife, and we wanted to take my mom and dad out to lunch after church. So Macy and I were at the restaurant, and we were waiting for my parents, but they were 10, 15 minutes late, so I called both my mom and my dad. My mom didn't pick up. My dad did pick up. I said, "Dad, you're late. Where are you? What's going on?" He said, "I'm just getting out of a meeting. I'm sorry, it ran a little longer than I thought it was going to." And he just had to lock up the church. He was jumping in his car and he'd be there in 5, 10 minutes. And then I heard him lock up the church, and it sounded like somebody just started banging on the front door.
When I was still at the hospital, I heard a trauma alert called overhead, and I just had this sinking feeling that it was involving my brother. So my coworker and I started praying that he was still alive. It's just, you're helpless in that situation.
I was just praying, my son's not dead.
On Sunday, March 6th, I have been working at the hospital.
All doctors to the ER.
I heard a trauma alert. I don't know why, but I can't explain it. It was just a gut feeling that something had happened because Kyle was missing and no one could get a hold of him.
You do see a lot of bad stuff. The things that he'd have experienced in Iraq were very hard. Some of the things haunt you. You are going to remember things. And he did have PTSD. And so, yeah, that's always a concern. Kyle had come to me and said that he had driven around to a certain part of the lake and had bought a hibachi type barbecue and had set it in his car and had tried to basically commit suicide with it. He said he woke up from the intense heat and ended up getting out. Throughout my whole career as a firefighter, we helped people, and I was always thankful that we didn't have to deal with any of this. And now, you know, here's our son, and I can't help him at all. So, sorry. We were thinking he committed suicide at that point. It was devastating. It ripped our hearts out. His mom, you know, started calling everybody and telling Kyle's gone, Kyle's gone.
Terry and I both knew that there's something really wrong.
I heard what sounded like somebody banging on the front door. I said, "Everything okay?" It sounded like someone is trying to get in the church or something. And didn't really hear anything. I heard a car drive away and I like screaming tires. And then I just start hearing choking. And I start hearing gargling. And I hear moans. And then I hear a man yelling, "Pastor Tim, Pastor Tim." And then I heard him say, "I'm calling 911, hold on." And I hear, "I'm at 901 East Best, I'm at the Altar Church, Pastor Tim has been shot." So, I mean, I honestly, it did not feel real. We jumped in the car and I drove as fast as I could to the church.
There's quite a crowd gathering everywhere. So a lot of the people that gathered back were parishioners from the church. They're being canvassed by other officers to see if they heard or saw anything. The victim in this case was Tim Remington, who was the pastor of this church. Pastor Remington is well known in the community, and the fact that he could be shot multiple times at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday is a big deal. The scene was one of concern. Is there still somebody out there? Are we safe? Is the community safe?
My name is Brandon McCormick. I'm a lieutenant here with the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. I arrive on scene and Detective Schmitz walked me through the scene. Nobody that we were able to speak to knew who this person was. Nobody. It was a mystery. It's not always when we go out to a crime scene that we wear our bulletproof vests. But because we had an outstanding person, I made sure that all my detectives were wearing their outer carrier, just in case our shooter decided to come back.
I could see the ambulance in the parking lot, and it was just absolutely heartbreaking because I could see my dad laying in a big puddle of blood. And I'm looking at him and going, just holding back so much anxiety. My heart felt like it wasn't beating at all. And I'm just freaking out. And these two officers are running at me to stop me from getting past this tape. They would not let me pass them. He said, listen, I would hurry up and get to the emergency room because he's gonna be there very, very soon. And I screamed, I said, I love you, Dad. And we drove as fast as we could to the emergency room. My family all started showing up.
When I got to the hospital and we were ushered into the waiting room, the doctor told us that the first shot hit him in the back. He then got 4 shots in his shoulder area, and one of those came through the top of his shoulder, shallow, and then hit him in the head. She thought this was our last chance to see him before he died. All our family was there as they wheeled him down the hallway. He was covered with blood. The skin that you could see was pale, ghostly white. And you can imagine his children, his mother, his wife, just saying, I love you, as he goes down the hall. And then he was gone. The officers that came to see us when we were in the waiting room told us, in essence, that they really didn't know much. There was very little information to go on.
Of course, the first question I would want to ask Pastor Tim, have you been threatened? Who's the person who threatened you most recently, and what was that threat? But we were unable to ask him those questions, so we were asking his associate pastor.
My name's John Padula, and I've been pastoring for about 4 years. Been at the Altar Church. I immediately went up to the police officers, told them the ministry here is pretty much focused on people in rehabilitation from drugs, alcohol. So most of the people that come into the rehab here have a pretty bad past, whether they're felons or on parole or have violent tendencies, those types of things. I was thinking it may have been somebody that had not made it through the program. Some of those people get a little mad when we have to talk to probation or the court system. They end up back in jail because we have to turn it in if they're not doing well.
Padula informed us that they had had death threats in the past. They had had prior members of the church that had threatened Pastor Remington.
One time somebody had waited till after church and had put a gun to Pastor Tim's head and threatened to take his life.
And then the realization came that somebody wanted to take Tim out, and the battle wasn't over yet.
Any available unit for a reported shooting, Remington Vest.
They are the beginning moments of a massive manhunt in Coeur d'Alene as police are called to a shooting outside the Altar Church.
Make sure and ATL the surrounding agencies whatever info we have.
Initially, what we know is this is a person who is armed. We know that he is very, very dangerous and who needs to be caught as quickly as possible before he can harm somebody else.
Pastor Tim and myself have had quite a few threats. They've been pretty serious at times from people that we thought could carry them out if they really wanted to, and they definitely are capable of it.
One of my initial thoughts was that it might be one of these people that felt wronged or disenfranchised by one of Pastor Remington's programs and had some reason wanted to target Pastor Remington as a result of that. One of the great things about this church is it has great surveillance footage. So they have several cameras inside, but they have several cameras outside. So knowing that our crime scene was likely in the northwest corner of the building, we had people looking at footage to see if we could capture what took place on film. Pastor Remington exits the church, and he's actually on the cell phone. The footage depicts him standing in front of his car, continuing the conversation. He kind of has his back turned. He opens the car door. A male shooter is walking and shooting at the same time and shot until he had no more bullets left to fire. You can see Pastor Remington fall to the ground. You then see the shooter exit the frame, and when witnesses were talked to afterwards, none of them recognized who the shooter was as someone who was a regular at the church or anything like that.
It was a mystery. Our shooter was gone. Nobody knew who he was.
There are also cameras all along the north side of the building. It enabled us to piece together how the shooter arrived that day, the vehicle he was driving, where he parked. He actually parked in multiple spots throughout the course of the morning. After shooting Pastor Remington, he immediately went to a silver Honda Accord and drove out of the parking lot to the south. We have detectives that are pouring through this security footage at the altar church. Mind you, every second we take fast forwarding through footage is another second this guy is either getting further away from us or closer to someone else that he wants to harm. So you feel the pressure. We need to identify who this suspect is. Ultimately, we got a huge break and we found one view in a different part of the parking lot where we could make out a plate. We run it and the registered owner of that vehicle comes back.
My wife had gone over to Grandma's house. Nancy really needed to be with her mom. She, wanted to go there so they could actually comfort each other. We wanted somebody to be here in case Kyle showed up, and somebody at Grandma's house where Kyle was staying, see if he showed up there.
That morning, my mom called me, and she said that Kyle had laid out some things on the bed she wanted me to see. She was really concerned.
He laid out his accomplishments, his diploma, his, some of his military stuff, all the good things in his life. We had our front window that had blinds that were kind of open. And I saw strange people walking in our neighborhood. We're a tight-knit neighborhood, and we know most of the people in the neighborhood, and these two guys walking by looked out of place. They don't belong here. And then I saw them taking hidden snapshots of the front of the house and the cars in the driveway. I could tell they went down around the corner, so I jumped in the car. I was going to get a picture of them just to have them on record, so at least if something went down in the neighborhood, I could say, hey, these two people were taking pictures. I got in the vehicle and wanted to go see where those guys had gone to. And I had my camera out, getting ready to take a picture of them. And as I turned the corner and I rolled my window down, they were sitting here in a SUV, so I started taking pictures of the two guys that were standing there. They were actually talking to somebody else in another vehicle. And that's when the realization hit me that, you know, something bigger was going on. So as I got around this corner up here, I heard sirens and saw the lights come on. So I kind of pulled over, knowing that they were obviously going to be stopping me. They pulled me out and they frisked me and put me in cuffs. And I had a concealed weapon, because I always do. And of course they took that, and, you know, basically everybody's lives got kind of turned upside down that day. Police pulled me over and they frisked me and put me in cuffs. And that's when they told me all about the incident at the altar church. They said, well, somebody shot Pastor Remington at the altar church, and that meant nothing to me. I'd never heard of Pastor Remington or the altar church. And said, well, your son's car was in that parking lot, and they were pretty sure it was Kyle that had shot him. They showed me a picture of Kyle's car that they had taken off the video security at the church, and said, we're looking for this car. Could have been anyone's two-door Accord. There's another couple of Honda Accords, two doors here in the neighborhood that are the same color, and I thought, there's no way he could have done that. There's no way he could have done it. I really needed to see a little bit more to really believe that he could have been involved in this.
In reviewing the security footage they had at the church, there were several cameras in this lobby area, in addition to cameras outside. Right in front of those two doors, there was a large table with like a cloth and pies and cakes and whatnot. Church is out, you know, and everyone's talking. And what really struck me is there's footage of the shooter standing here in the lobby. The footage goes on for a long time. There are several times where I can see Pastor Remington enter the frame. He's talking to the people over here behind these pies. I could see the shooter very aware of Pastor Remington's presence. Now, I have seen a lot of things, and that was creepy, the way he just kind of milled about the frame and observed Pastor Remington. His hands are obscured the entire time. You can't see what he's doing with his hands underneath the shirt. That was disconcerting to me. I feel very fortunate that whatever plan he had in his mind to execute that day wasn't executed up here in this lobby of the church, and instead happened out in the parking lot. Because there's so many women and children and innocents standing around, that it would have been terrible for it to go down in here.
They had him on video at the church. They showed me a few pictures. Absolute disbelief. I just couldn't, I could not picture my son doing that. It was shocking to me. God, it was like living in a dream, you know, a bad dream. That's when the realization hit me that, you know, Kyle might have been involved.
This is probably the first time that I've seen my dad cry, aside from when his mom died.
I didn't want to believe it. Kyle never even wanted to, hunt or to kill a living thing. It hurts. It's very painful for me as a mother.
worse than giving birth was the pain that I felt.
It was like there was really no time to think about anything other than, man alive, I hope he's okay. And I hope he doesn't hurt someone else.
He called us and said, I got to come down and see you. Can I come down right now? And so he flew down that night. And so both my wife and I were like, what's going on here? Kyle said, I saw basically monsters, aliens. They were going to bust through the brick to get into us. And he was fearful for us. What he saw was so real to him. Right then we knew, wow, he needs some help. There's nothing we can do. You know, but I knew I had no skills to deal with this. So the next morning, after a long, restless night, we took him to VA and hoped that they would have something there that they could help him with. That was start of a long nightmare. The VA gave him some medication and stuff to help him relax, but he was so scared of everything, he would not take anything. So that was the first introduction to us knowing that there was an issue of any kind. And we had no clue how to help him. No clue.
At this point, I'm calling out our hunt task force because we still have an outstanding suspect that obviously has the propensity to fire his gun. So we were on guard. But I know that his mom was really concerned about what was going to happen if it came to a confrontation with Kyle. When you're confronted by the police, you know, I'm sure you guys have heard the term, you know, suicide by cop, and that's always a concern for us too, especially with the information that we had about Kyle.
There definitely was a ticking clock. We needed to find Kyle Odom and who else might be in danger. Those are all burning questions. We were able to obtain phone records for Kyle Odom. We start pinging the phone, and the track of the phone goes westbound on I-90 towards Spokane, and then southbound through the Tri-Cities, and then Interstate 84 going south towards Boise, and right around Pendleton, Oregon, signal goes dead. He ends up making a Facebook post while he's on the run. Holy crap, he posts on Facebook. Get the IP address of that post. I can't believe he just posted on Facebook. He posts a picture of an alien on his Facebook account. And we're able to immediately get a warrant for Facebook and track that IP address that he posted from to Washington, D.C. Simultaneously, we're intercepting a thumb drive that he sends to his parents.
In that thumb drive was Kyle Odom's manifesto.
It was the most detailed account of start to finish, day one till he realized what he needed to do. When I was reading that, it makes you so sad because he felt like it was his mission to save the world, to help save us from the Martians.
He described how Pastor Remington was an alien, how John Padula was an alien, and how he had to take this action against them to preserve our civilization. And we're like, we need to get SWAT to Padula's house right now.
I had a group text message app where I would send out a text message that would go out to about 390 people a day that would be either scripture or some type of encouragement. Old number got assigned automatically to Kyle Odom when he got a new phone.
Kyle Odom places a certain stake in these scripture texts and may start motivating his behavior. And so that's how we learned the contact began between Mr. Odom and the altar church. I don't know what was next on his agenda.
Breaking news tonight as Secret Service observe a man throwing objects over the south fence of the White House.
He's gonna shoot somebody else.
The first wind we get of Kyle Odom, we got a hit. He went up on his Facebook account.
By posting on Facebook, now he has popped up on the grid again. We get a big break. We successfully identify that IP address is coming from a hotel in Washington, D.C. near the White House. Immediately, FBI's calling, let's get somebody to the hotel. As they check the hotel for where the post was made, Mr. Odom is no longer there. Someone just saw him walk out.
A bizarre turn of events in a story that caught the attention of the nation. A pastor gunned down in his church parking lot, igniting a multi-state manhunt, came to an end on the other side of the country.
Secret Service just tackled somebody throwing something over the fence at the White House, and they've taken that person into custody, and lo and behold, it's Kyle Odom. And what he ultimately was throwing over the fence was a backpack containing another copy of his thumb drive and manifesto and a letter to, at that time, President Obama, imploring him for his assistance in dealing with the alien infiltration into our society.
We got a call saying, hey, he's arrested and he's safe. And at that point, we were actually relieved that he was caught. Number one, that he couldn't hurt anyone else. And number two, that he can't harm himself. It was like watching a story about somebody else. It just does, it's not like it's Kyle. It does not look like our son. Certainly not the son we know. Of course, after the fact, you go back to being heartbroken again because of the effect that it had to all of his family. Pastor Remington, his whole family has been devastated.
This stuff I got about 5-6 weeks ago. I haven't opened them yet, so this is my first time of opening these bags. What is this? Oh, it is. It says that is the shirt. That's my Pastor Tim shirt.
There's your undershirt.
Right there. There's a hole. There's the one on this side. There's the pelvic. Look at that.
One in your back right here. Let's see. This is the one that took out your arm. This is the one that went in and out and hit you in the head.
Everything about me is a miracle. It's all a miracle. My right side was destroyed. I didn't know if I was going to be able to walk again, and every day my right arm feels like it's in a deep fryer.
This one took out his arm. They had to totally rebuild this humerus bone.
They didn't think I would ever move my right arm. They said I would never play the piano again. I'm not a victim, and that's what I've been telling everybody from the beginning. I'm not the victim. I'm the victor.
I mean, as a mother, and you think back to all the years in raising a child and what it takes to give them the right amount of love and correction and guidance, it's really painful when your child makes such a terrible choice.
I would never characterize myself as a victim, but I lost a son. And so I feel their pain. Because I just know what that feels like.
I know my wife and I both relive this daily. Is there anything else that we could have done? What else, what did we miss? What did we see, not see?
Terry and Nancy are beautiful people, and I could feel their grief. For somebody to hold a guilt like his parents, guilt drives us to a place of depression. I didn't want them to lose faith, have no hope. I want them to have hope for their son. I don't want Kyle to feel guilty. If I died, I didn't want my sons to be scarred with that anger and that bitterness and that unforgiveness at all. And what I'm hoping to do today in the prison down here in Boise is to let Kyle Odom, the man that shot me, know that he's forgiven. I just hope that he receives it and that he gets what he needs out of this, along with myself.